Fighting lies, building leaders all around the world. Let us keep our dreams alive. Cause tomorrow's gonna be a better day.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kexil World Youth Network podcast. It's a podcast where we hear authentic voices from all over the world about the real issues that are happening on the ground. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you're joining our podcast from. My name is Wycliffe Kuguni, and I'm joining from Nairobi, and I'll be your host for the Male as Allies in Gender Equality series. This is a special series that relates to the Kexil Male Promise Keeper campaign, and we are going to be looking at the role of men in ending harmful practices. As the title suggests, men as allies in gender equality, reimagining masculinity in ending harmful practices against women and girls. I'm going to have a series of hosts, of guests who are going to be speaking on real stories about the work that they are doing in respective parts of the world. This podcast series will address the role of men in dismantling harmful practices against women and girls, such as early marriage, teenage pregnancy, female genital mutilation, gender-based violence, discontinuation from school, and femicide. Each episode will highlight the critical importance of male involvement in these issues and discuss actionable strategies for positive change. We will also share powerful stories, interviews from these experts and activists who will explore how men can leverage their influence in their families, in their communities, and in the broader society, create safe environments for women and girls. So welcome to episode number 1. Introduction. Why men must lead. Over to you, David. Welcome to the podcast. If you can give a brief background about yourself and what you do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kuguni. Thank you. I really appreciate to be on this episode, and I'm really happy. I'm David Lemiso, Executive Director at the Kilgoris Project, and what we do mostly within education. We have 6 schools around Kilgoris area, that is 2 sub-counties, and we serve about 2,300 students and about 150 staff. And mostly we do community partnership in these schools, and we encourage the community at this level to continue educating their children, because most of our community leaders and our stakeholders and partners, they are illiterate. So most of them didn't go to school. Therefore, out of this, we know education is a leverage that could really be able to bring the whole world all together and even to speak the same language. So that is what we do. We do holistically and for both boys and girls, which is really something that is quite behind in our society. But I'll really praise TKP what it does, because all our schools is kind of like the same level, both girls and boys. And therefore, that is what we're doing. And we have seen a lot of transformation with this community, and people now realized and even echoed and supported about education into these communities, and even other communities coming to want for more such as schools like we're doing, because kids are so much taught, and even to a high level that where we could not really have reached before as a community. And it has brought an impact to each and every aspect of life, even from primary level to the high school, and even for those students that we've been together in different colleges and even universities, which is not really an easy thing in our community, but it is illuminating to see like it is so good to have opportunity to take kids to school. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Our second guest is Michael Kishoyan from Kenya as well. Over to you, Michael.
I am the representative of Narok County at the UNFPA Youth Advisory Panel, and also as the executive director of Ereto Nadupa organization. This is a community-based organization that is dedicated to empowering individuals and promoting sustainable development in key areas such as sexual reproductive health rights, elimination of FGM, water, hygiene and sanitation, and also economic empowerment. We are founded with a vision to uplift vulnerable populations, especially children and youth. So we focus on providing education on sexual reproductive health, developing talents, and also engaging the community to foster positive change. We are active advocates for the abandonment of FGM by promoting alternative rites of passage, by promoting critical issues like maybe also like addressing key critical issues like period poverty and also mental health stigmas for FGM survivors. We also promote climate action by fostering a sense of ownership, accountability, and dignity. Ereto Nadupa seeks to create a lasting change through partnerships and also negotiations with like-minded organizations. So we focus on also quality education, whereby we intend to increase the access to inclusive, equitable, and holistic education opportunities for children, especially in marginalized children and youth. Through initiatives like mentorship programs, alternative rites of passage, and literacy campaigns, we empower the community to prioritize education as a foundation to sustainable development and social transformation. Professionally, I am a public relations and diplomacy officer. I do and provide consultancy services in regarding to public relations. So that is basically about me, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you here. And maybe for someone who is hearing about harmful practices against women for the first time, you could perhaps help them get to understand, Michael, based on your work that you've done and your experience in that sector and the fact that you've worked for the UNFPA Youth Panel. What are these harmful practices and how do you define them?
Okay, thank you so much once again. Harmful practices against women, this refers to traditional, cultural, or social practices that negatively affect the health and also the right as well as the dignity of women and girls. These practices are often deeply rooted in gender inequality, also discrimination, and also societal norms that limit women opportunities and freedoms. Maybe according to different communities and settings, societal settings, we have different harmful practices against women. For example, we have female genital mutilation, that is the partial or total removal of female genitalia for non-medical reasons. It normally leads to health risks and also lifelong consequences. Number two, we have child or forced marriages. This is the marrying of girls at a young age, often denying them the right to education and also exposing them to early pregnancies and restricting their autonomy. The third one we have is femicide. That is the killing of women and girls due to their gender. That is also maybe linked to domestic violence and harmful cultural beliefs. We also have gender-based violence, that is GBV. This comes in different forms, that is physical, emotional, sexual, or psychological abuse directed at women because of their gender. we have something to do with domestic violence, rape, and also honor killings. Another thing another form of gender-based or maybe harmful practices that is very, very much critical and like maybe important for us to look into is the widow inheritance and also property disinheritance. This often happens whether by people or maybe widows are forced into marriages, or maybe they are denied that access to own property that was left by the husband. So these are some of the harmful cultural practices that are linked to maybe affecting the rights of women and girls in Africa and also across the world. Maybe lastly to mention is this discontinuity in education. This is also just denying the girls the access to education due to gender biases, economic constraints, or maybe expectations of domestic responsibility. Thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And these are issues that are affecting women. And so perhaps our listeners could be asking themselves, what is the role of men involvement, active involvement in addressing these issues? How and men, and why is it important for men to be involved in addressing these issues? I would like to give David a chance to speak on to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I think first and foremost in the African culture, and more so Maasai, men are the head of the family. Men have all the authority to say, and once they rubber stamp it, then it means it is okay or it is secured. And therefore, to that setup, why do we need men? If the men can spearhead, and even I can echo what my predecessor, that is Kishoyan, said, they have all these customs and traditions that are quite harmful to women. And if you try to see, it is spearheaded by men. For example, for FGM, men, when they decide to say, like, I will marry any girl who hasn't gone through the cultural practice, and they stand on their feet, that she is okay without going to that process, I'm going to marry and I stand against the practice. If we join hands as men, definitely yes, the community will echo and understand and agree with men. So men are so fundamental on these practices, on the things to support the women, because more so they are the one pushing and being the people on forefront of spearheading decision, because they are decision makers. They are the rulers. They are in the community setup. In each and every community, men are in front. So once men are involved in this and agree together that this is an ample practice, then it shall be done. So the role here is for men to stand against all these practices that are not good for the women, and it shall be done. So because we agree, and even the women themselves, even in the locality, that they will say, like, no, maybe my husband or my brother has to stand on this, or I want to hear what my brother or my husband say about this, because they feel all the time the ladies are inferior. They need a say from men before they rubber stamp. So I really agree, men needs to spearhead this and to stand against any harmful practices, against, the FGM, against violence, beating, against saying, like on Maasai, we say, like, all women are children. So if you try to think like you're disciplining the child, that is what they usually say. Like, if you go and the woman hasn't done something right, even for some, they have nothing. They have no mistake that they have done. But because of the superiority and the feeling like I want to oppress, the women is being just beaten for nothing, just kind of like to suppress. So if men will stand as men with that kind of leadership and say no to the violence to the women, FGM against it, any other practices that demean them, I know 100% we will win on this. We need to stand as men and not to feel we may use that opportunity, authority that we've been given by God Himself to direct and to support our women and to make sure that they are safe. Because men, they're in a position not to demean or to oppress, but to hold together their sisters, their wives, and even to make sure that they are strong and they are brave as well, and even to face this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. You speak to something that is very important to the core of this campaign of the Men Promise Keeper, that there are very influential position or privileges that men have within communities, and most of the time they have used those privileges to the detriment of the women. And the gender equality conversation has been on the angle of getting the women to take the lead in ending these practices. But the captive program is taking a different approach, and we're looking at the opposite gender. We're getting to have conversations and getting men to ask them, what role can you play in ending these harmful practices against the women? It's not like the women cannot make decisions by themselves. It's not like they cannot stand and do things for themselves. But the question is, what can men also help contribute to ending these harmful practices? And this brings us to a conversation about understanding masculinity. We've had the positive and the negative effects of masculinity. There's toxic masculinity and positive masculinity. I would like to hear from you, David, how traditional ideas about masculinity often perpetuate harmful practices and how they can be redefined for positive change in our communities.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, that for men, they not really tend, but they are, the head of the family, and mostly for the decision makers. And at times when we are surrounded by the friends, traditions, and ways of lives that we feel like the man is the decision maker, at times we redirect it to do it a wrong thing, or just because we have the voice, we have to say it done, then we do it wrongly. So I want to say, how can we redefine our masculinity as men? Because yes, we have that authority. I want to see a scenario kind of like things that I myself found it. One of the girl in one of our school was really like, because you could not really join an high school, the parent, and even more so the father, had decided this is a very opportunity for me to get dowry. I'm going to send a small 14 years old girl that I'm going to send her to be married so that I can get dowry, and which was very wrong. So he was misusing his authority and masculinity as a father to sell a 14-year-old girl to be married. So how did I do it? I took an initiative myself, and she was bold enough to come and tell me, like, soon I'm going to get married because my parents are not able to provide for my school fees. And in fact, already it was just a matter of hours for her to be sent out. We took that initiative. I took that initiative and authority that I had, as that I could have really contributed for marriage, and I stood against it. I stood against it. I took her and hid her somewhere in a place, and as much as she was still waiting to see what is the action, we got a school for her. And even not just a school, but a boarding school that we could really send her to be able to endeavor with her education. So we really fought against what she was to come, and then we made it positively. Our authority and masculinity as men maneuvered and got to school and sent this little girl. And she was like this is a new world. She felt so strong because she was totally hopeless, and then she picked it again. We took her to the high school, and she did great. And well, by the time the parent came, like wanting to know where she is, we stood and say, anybody want to touch her will face the role of law. So I really feel like we redefined our authority as men, and even to rescue this girl, and even to send her to the right school, and to make sure that she could really continue with her education.
Wow, that's a very inspiring story. And it shows just how two men with authority can use their authority either for bad or for good. And thank you, David, for that story of courage and inspiration to society. And I think if men can borrow from that example, we can save a lot of lives and good brains from being destroyed by harmful practices such as early marriage. I would love to hear from Michael, based on the experiences of you working within communities. Would you share with us what are some of the societal and cultural norms that have often placed men in positions of power and influence, which have ultimately led to perpetuation of these harmful practices within the communities you've been working in?
Thank you very much. And I just want to reiterate on the words that Mr. David has have mentioned, that indeed this is a culturally deep-rooted issue, or maybe in Africa we are that patriarchal society. And you find that especially in the community that I come from, the Maasai community, we have something we call the age sets. Like every certain age, or maybe a certain age range, has an age set, and you find that many of these issues arise from there, maybe as men becoming heads, or maybe becoming the final say in the community. And you find that some things, or maybe some of these issues like FGM, child marriages, and maybe wife inheritance, and all that, they come from there. So like maybe men are seen as the heads, men are seen as the final say, and also the opinion shapers in the community. And when maybe a father says that my child is going to get married, or maybe my girl is going to be cut, that is often, or maybe usually, the high chances for this girl to be maybe mutilated or being given out for marriage are true. So I feel like saying that men, they need to come up and also join hands, or maybe become defenders of these issues, or maybe the rights of women and girls.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. And we've seen the uprising of men like David and like yourself and a couple of other men in communities in the recent past, getting to champion ending such harmful practices. Young men who have come out to say that I am willing to get married to someone who has not undergone FGM, and they're willing to deal with whatever negative consequences that might come out of that decision with courage. And we see men contributing to taking girls in school and so forth and so on. But then the question is, why have other men been silent in this conversation? And even before, what is it that has caused men to remain passive in the fight against gender-based violence? And how can we break this kind of silence? Over to you, David.
Okay. Yeah, I think as per what you said, Gugone, that means you have to be bold, because there is a lot of repercussion. And I really echo back what Kishoyan said. We are so much structured in a way of age groups and age sets And at times, if you're not really bold enough to take an action, which is like you believe, for example, like I and maybe Kishoyan, you have to sacrifice because you'll not be counted as a hero in the community when you go against their tradition and ways. And therefore, if you take like you want to maintain to be a hero, to be known as a Maasai man or elder and all that, and to their own ways of life, you'll never come out of it. And not unless you deny yourself and go for the vision and the focus that you have to do that is beyond and above what the tradition says. So it needs boldness. You need to be bold, Mr. Guguni, into the Maasai community to be able to break some of the traditions, some of the ways, because there is a lot of ridicule, there is a lot of setback, there is a lot of rejection, that even when you go after men and they are sitting around, if you come into where they are, they can stand up and go. Even some will really even fight you. So it needs a lot of boldness, like what you believe, it is wrong. And you imagine when you persist for quite some time, obvious, you'll start seeing, you'll start recruiting some people and telling them what you should stand on, what you believe, not unless. Otherwise, it is a very crude community and very hard on their tradition wave of life because they feel like nobody. Maasais are very proud of their cultural and all that, but it just needs a very strong man, a very strong decision that you make to be able to penetrate. And you have to have all the reason and even boldness enough not to care anything else, but go by your vision to transform the life of a person. And after some time, they'll come and know and realize your stance. So they don't want people that are wavy. At times you go, you can be beaten. You can be even get a lot of prejudice. But if you stand strong and count nothing, you focus on your vision, they will tend to come for sure along the way. But it needs to be resilience and strong and bold on the things and be sure on the things that you're doing. Eventually, you'll be able to transform them.
Wonderful. That's a very, very good explanation to it. And one of the character you're mentioning is courage and boldness. But then when you're doing this alone, it can be very difficult when you have a lot of negativity surrounding you. So there's a question of how do we build these bold men who are ready to go against the grain? So the power of male as allies, how can positive role models like you or other person like Michael shift societal perception? And how can we build this community of young men to introduce the idea of positive masculinity and how that can lead to change? Michael, would you please speak to that?
Okay, thank you so much. And before maybe I answer that question, I want to emphasize or maybe echo on what David has said concerning facing the backlash in the fight against FGM. I personally faced that. There is a day, a cousin of mine who happens to be a gentleman asked me, Michael, why do you keep on fighting for FGM? And at the end of the day, we want these women who have been cut because it is part of culture. It's part of our fathers or maybe our grandfathers married women who are cut. Why do you keep on fighting against FGM? Yet it is our culture. And now I had to sit him down, talk to him, and also explain to him about how FGM is also affecting men in terms of economic issues. And just now to come back to the question of maybe the power of male allies and how positive male role models can shift their societal perceptions. It is important to have men come to the upfront spaces to just like fight FGM, speak against these harmful practices or maybe of gender-based violence. So I can say positive male role models who challenge toxic masculinity and advocate for gender equality also can influence others to do the same. When men publicly reject harmful practices and also promote respect, empathy, and also partnerships, they can create new standards of masculinity. Gokuni, just to mention, fathers and brothers, religious leaders, and also community leaders who champion for the rights of women and girls, they inspire younger generations to embrace this positive masculinity. In this devolved government, maybe in the local administration, we have people we call the peacekeepers, or maybe the wazee wa Bakumi. We have the chiefs, we have the police, we have the leaders of clergy. These are men, or maybe these are people who are there to provide positive or maybe act as role models in the society, and we can be able to copy what they are doing. And I can say that prioritizing or maybe us embracing positive masculinity, it prioritizes protection, support, and also equality in terms of these issues. Let me just mention also that indeed, as the African society, or maybe even as the society at large, we are facing gender-based violence, and we do not know. Last year, we were doing an anti-FGM mission in Maroc County, and we visited around 4 constituencies in the county, maybe reaching out to around 1,000 plus people, community members. Yes, and we realized one thing, that people understand FGM. Many people understand that FGM is bad. But now when it comes to gender-based violence, that is where we draw the line. That is where now we don't know, or maybe people are passing through gender-based violence, economic gender-based violence, emotional gender-based violence, or even physical gender-based violence. And they do not know. Maybe these people, especially the issue of owning land or maybe owning property in the community, it is an issue whereby women have embraced it, that they are not supposed to own property. They are not supposed to maybe even do farming, for example, or maybe even own a certain number of cattle. They are not supposed to do that. And as men, when we allow our women to own property, when we allow our women to also maybe carry out or maybe practice farming, it is also a plus to us. That is what we need to understand as men. It is a plus to us, because when I pay school fees, my wife or maybe somewhere a woman here is there to buy the school uniform for the children, or maybe buy the books and buy the stationery. As I bring, maybe for example, just an example, when I bring unga on the table, or maybe maize flour on the table, my wife brings vegetables as well. And that is what we need to embrace as men, just to maybe embrace this masculinity, like positive masculinity, whereby I will allow my woman to own property. I will allow my woman to maybe do a business. And that is how we can be able to provide role models to the rest of us. Thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. And you've already debunked some harmful ideas that are there and myths about masculinity. And there are people who talk about masculinity as dominance or control over women. That is a myth, and that's not true. masculinity is about leadership, and leadership is not dominance. Leadership is showing direction and a vision towards positive things. I would like you to speak a little bit more about the work that you've been doing with authorities and people in positions of power and leadership. You've talked about village elders, you've talked about the chiefs and people who are in senior positions of leadership taking the lead. Would you please share with us some stories from your communities of men who are in position of leadership taking the lead to talk against these harmful practices, and how that decision of these men to talk against these harmful practices has led to changes within the communities? Over to you, Michael.
Okay, thank you so much. And let me just also mention that we need these people. We need these men in the top leadership positions for us to push some of these agendas. And just to give an overview of what we have been doing, or maybe what I've been doing at a personal level, I've been working closely with this community opinion, or maybe opinion leaders. For example, I've mentioned about Waziri wa Nyumba Kumi. And these are the people in charge of peace. These are the people who solve, maybe when we have some wrangles within families, these are the people who are usually called. And I've been able to bring them on board. I've also been able to bring the chiefs on board, the national government affirmative or maybe officers on board. I've also been able to work with the police and also the leaders of clergy and a section of young people. And most importantly, also, of which I'll talk about it later, the age-set chiefs. So let us talk about those that I've mentioned. All of them are very, very much play a key role in terms of speaking against these issues. For example, what is the role of a police officer in ending FGM? We have the existence of the Prohibition of FGM, Female Genital Mutilation Act of 2011, which has some policies, which has some mandates given to the police. They come on board. Also the chiefs. These are the people who work directly under the president at the community level. And then now we come to the leaders of clergy. In Africa, religion is taken much into seriousness, and many people have embraced religion, be it Muslim, be it Christian, or maybe Hindus. And I've been able to work with religious leaders at the community level because they deal with the women, they deal with the youth, and they deal with the men also in their churches or maybe in their mosques. And when they take maybe when they preach against FGM, when they preach against these harmful practices, gender-based violence, it will be easier for them also to influence. And now it comes to maybe just let me talk about the age set chiefs. I mentioned about the age set, the age bracket, that thing whereby we go to the Manyata and let's say, for example, stay there for a full month, like just eating and dancing, eating meat, and also drinking milk and dancing, and also talking about culture, talking anything about how to unite as a community. And it is important. Maybe we are finding ways, and also we are finding mechanisms of us reaching us to those age-set chiefs, because these are people who are very, very highly respected in the community. Just to mention, maybe to some extent they are even respected more than the national government chief, or maybe the administrative chief. The age set chief is someone who is very, very highly respected by all the members of that particular age group. And now I want to mention another thing that we've been able to push for it, the political goodwill. To some extent, it is a challenge because these are people who are after votes, and sometimes speaking against these cultural practices, it is hard. And for us to get the political goodwill, it will be very important, or maybe it will be very, very much of importance to fight these issues. And then I also am a member of the Gender Technical Working Group in Narok County, whereby we are trying also to work with the community, or maybe the CSOs are present in Narok County. And the chairperson of that Gender Technical Working Group is the county commissioner, a very powerful position in the county. And we've been able to work closely with them. We are having something we call the county commissioner calls it Operation Ondoa, or maybe Operation Angamiza FGM. Operation does not mean this operation does not mean arresting people, but operation like having all the people under him speak against FGM. We have the commandants of police, we have the OCSs, we have the chiefs, we have the SECs speaking against FGM at their particular jurisdictions. And we've been able to ride on that. And lastly to mention is that also we are working with the, I've been able to work also with the youth leaders. Youth in Kenya form quite a lion's share in the Kenyan population. And we have been able to work with the youth. We have youth representatives at ward levels, at village levels, and we've been able to streamline the information. We've been able to streamline the communication up to the grassroots levels. And that is what we've been able to cover in terms of preaching and also pushing for the elimination of female genital mutilation and also other forms of gender-based violence. Thank you, and back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael, for that extensive explanation of the kind of leadership positions that are being involved. I understand that David is a very influential person in Kilgoris, and through setting up the schools, and you've gone through the journey of fighting for the rights of women and girls and children to get an education, from resistance to people accepting and positively agreeing to your decision. Would you please tell us, based on your experiences, what other leaders or stories within Kilgoris of other leaders like you who have been influenced to talk about against these harmful practices and how their influence has affected the entire community in Kilgoris?
Okay, thank you so much, Kuguni. And this is very, very much interesting, and it's really great that we are together with Kishuya. So we tend to carry most of the things almost together. And back here in Kilgoris, in fact, if I can echo a little bit what Kishuya mentioned about who are these stakeholders can really help us to eradicate these bad practices, and against the FGM and even violence against women and something of the sort, before coming back to the point that you really ask. In fact, it is like from the community level to the government level. All these people has been of a great help to support. And once we make sure that this information goes, the trainings and reaching out and being like, when you spearhead, you need to be an example. And I think I found that one was so much powerful. For example, at times like for the FGM, these people are so tactical. The Masai are very tactical. So you cannot really be like against it and then you doing against what you're saying. For example, like David, if I'm really spearheading for the girls and the FGM, then I should be in the front line to accept a girl who is not cut, that I can really say, and then for them to see had, okay, burn kids, if it is education, if it is practicing business, like what Kishoyanan said, just to empower her, that for sure for her to be part and parcel of the community without any other problem, then it becomes a very good weapon. Making sure that we ourselves, the spearheading team, being an example to them so that they can see what is really happening on what we are really saying. Not that I'm really against, they really like want to see the examples. Like I'm against violence, gender-based violence. And it happens that I'm the one every day, every morning, every evening, the cries is my family. So they'll say, which kind of example is that? So we need to be the role model on this. We need to be the role model on this. Yeah, I really remember the support and all that. I mean, the member of clergy has been so, the religious aspect, as Kishoyan has mentioned, is very powerful, and it has really helped the community to realize and even to know that other practices that they are doing are really harmful and not really helping. So more leaders, they've been really for spearheading the difference and even to the community level. For example, having opportunity to give even the ladies, women to lead while you're just there, and for them to see that, yes, she can. For example, giving a woman like to be a principal and she leads well, and they feel like, okay, you mean she can really do, because we don't trust on women, but once given a chance, then it becomes a good example. So with the people surrounding it, be it in the religious sector, be it in the formal sector, we have now women who are chiefs, who are SCCs, and even DCs, and they are really doing well. And it becomes a challenge because, for example, in Kigoris, we get other communities that they took their girls to school. They are turning here now to be officers. They are turning to be principal. They are turning to be chiefs. They are turning to be SCCs. Okay, mostly chief from the ground. But still, I'm really proud for this juncture as we talk. We have some of the chiefs that are from this locality that are leading meetings, which is something unheard of. Okay, for the traditional men of this community could not really sit down while the women addresses. You know, the very practice we used to do, if a woman has a point she wants to raise, she has to sit down and the man stands without speaking, and then that woman can speak while she's sitting down. So they never trusted for a woman to stand while the men are sitting down. But right now, what I will say, we are seeing the chiefs are standing in the barassas and talking to these men. We are seeing ACC's ladies coming to our place, and they see like they are really living a better life. And we're seeing principles. We see different sectors with these women are becoming a challenge to our community. So when we take it positively and talk to them, like these are the position our girls, our daughters, our sisters, our mothers needs to stand and even to participate. We have women who are business ladies, are powerful, and they are doing great things. So it becomes a good challenge to our community, and they start opening their eyes. So it's just need a bold step to see that they're leading very good. If it's a principal leading a school very well and things, men are under them and they are still leading well. And I would say definitely it has become a good challenge that they are seeing out of that. Once now we face them head on, and for them to see this, definitely they melt down and see we need to support these initiatives. But
Right. So our third guest on the call is okay. Right. So, and our third guest on the podcast today is Prince Zolani Mkiva, his royal heritage. And I'll give him a chance to introduce himself, give us a background of what he does and who he is. Over to you, Prince Zolani.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon to you, as well as the other members of the panel on this platform. It gives me a great pleasure to join you today on this important conversation. My name is Zolani Mkiva. I am from South Africa. And in South Africa, I am a community activist, but also part of the collective leadership of the Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, as well as the Institute of African Royalty. We are an advocacy organization that advocates good values and norms for the institution of traditional leadership, promoting the spirit of Ubuntu in our communities. But most importantly, which is relevant in this conversation, is our stand, which is very clear on our support for women and children in our society, so that as part of our custodianship, it means we must be in the forefront of their protection and ensuring that they are defended from attacks which are sometimes used with the employment of cultural practices that are actually very irrelevant in our society because they are about the social ills which we have seen. So we stand firmly against FGMs, against child marriages, against short-term marriages, and against any practices that are stifling and terrorizing the lives of women and children. That is what we stand for. And I have had an opportunity to be part and parcel of the campaigns in the continent to alleviate FGMs, as well as some of these social ills, which are based on, negative cultural practices. So from that perspective, as the Institution of Traditional Leadership, we also are a champion of rural development, ensuring that we bring the much needed infrastructural investment into our areas. We are very clear that the continent of Africa is predominantly that which has a rural landscape as well as a young population, and therefore it is important that we give much needed focus into the margins of our society to ensure an equitable share in the economic activities, but also to ensure that we promote the spirit of equality and alleviate unemployment and poverty in our society. So basically, I think my activism is based on those lines which I have actually mainstream. And I also advocate strongly for the infusion of indigenous knowledge systems in the public policy framework of our society at large. I hope that captures my background, my brother, in terms of where I come from and what we stand for right now. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Prince Zolani, and for the extensive work you're doing, not just for South Africa, but for the entire continent. You bring in a very rich experience of different cultures and your experience working with different communities across the continent. And this conversation is about the role of men. And I'd like to ask just to get to hear from you, based on your experiences across these different cultures, why is it important that we involve men? So what is the importance that of men involvement in this issue? And what are some of the societal and cultural norms that often place men in position of power and influence that we could discuss, which perpetuate the challenge of harmful effects on women and girls?
Yeah, it is important that men are brought into the fore in terms of conversations like this, because it goes without saying that it is an existential reality that men play a very critical role in the administration of our families, in the leadership of our respective countries and communities, and most importantly, for the longest period of time, men has been at the helm of authority, managing the national question in spaces. And so there is certainly a perception that with the leadership of men, there are good things that are happening under our stewardship as male figures in general in our society. But there's also been some negative defects which have occurred under our own watch, which have actually marginalized women and led to the dehumanization of women in some aspects of our life. And there is also a general feeling that sometimes our culture or some people misrepresent the culture in order to exploit women and in some extreme circumstances brutalize women. It is therefore important that we take a stand as men who are good citizens to demonstrate our clarity of our mind as well as our clarity of what we stand for, which is in line and conforms with the spirit of humanity and how we should relate with women. So from a point of view of African culture, it's very important that we say clearly that insofar as our Africanity as a people, there is nothing that suggests that we have to discriminate women. Actually, we are all equal before the eyes of our own cultural design. The difference sometimes is based on the division of labor, based on the extent to which the fitness of one gender vis-a-vis the other, conforms with the task at hand. So there is no fundamental issues that says that men must ill-treat women or women must ill-treat men. So in this respect, women always find themselves in some spaces on the receiving end because some people abusing culture and are misinterpreting and misrepresenting culture for their own selfish ends. So it is therefore important as leaders of our families, as leaders in our communities, that we actually step up and say, not in our name as men, so that we do so in order to protect our mothers, to protect our sisters, to protect our children, and to protect our wives in this context. So we have to be in the front line, so to say, and not say this is a struggle or a revolution that should only be led by women, but all of us as society. And I think we have even a more responsibility as men who hold these public offices and these positions of authority to actually ensure that we protect women and children in our society.
Wow. Thank you so much, Zolani. And we've seen how there are very good examples of people who have power, and there are some who have used that power for positive gain in society, and there are others who have used that very same power for negative gain within the community. Masculinity comes with a lot of responsibility, and part of this responsibility involves protection. There are men who have used their power within masculinity to harm, and there are men who have used it for negative consequences. So I'd like to hear from you. Mr. Zolani, Prince Zolani, how can positive masculinity be used to promote positive change? And what are some of the examples about positive masculinity that you can share with our audience today?
Well, it is important that we do promote the spirit of positive masculinity. And in South Africa, I will start there to make an example that there's always a case wherein we convene men's parliament. And really, the men's parliament is convened to actually emphasize the point that we cannot allow manhood to be used and be weaponized to the abusiveness that is meted against women. So when we do convene such a very important gathering where men come together and actually have a conversation amongst themselves to actually not only condemn, but to distance itself from such practices. We have also had an opportunity to gather as traditional leaders of the continent and actually set up an instrument which becomes an instrument that becomes a war room against femicide and gender-based violence against women and children. So I'm making those two examples as a way of showing leadership. So I think leadership visibility is one aspect when that we must actually ensure that we raise our hand quite clearly against this, but also to demonstrate leadership on the ground insofar as this is concerned. So when you set up this instrument, not only as a ceremonial thing, but as an ongoing concern as well as an annual exercise that happens every time to highlight, to conscientize, but also to offer patriotic education, I think demonstrate that. There are other interventions because many people would say, as an example, that the institution of traditional leadership itself is rigid. There are people who suggest that it is rigid and it doesn't accommodate men. So, I mean, we have went to the extent of saying that whenever there is a chance to put up collective leadership, either in the form of structures or in the public domain in terms of institutions, so we must always accommodate women so that we demonstrate that it's more than just the talk, but we are beginning to walk the talk. So those are the examples that we must accommodate women in leadership. We must ensure that we are not doing them favor by so doing, but we are giving them an opportunity that when we deal with their matters, we don't deal with their matters without them. They must be part and parcel of everything that we do when we confront challenges in society in general, but also in general terms. Women must always be given a role to play at a level of leadership and not be relegated to the background. Because in history, everyone will agree that for the longest period of time, what has coloniality done was to actually do a disservice to women by relegating them to background. You still have stereotypes, and people will say women belong to the kitchen. I think such statements are actually, a crime against humanity, against women. When we talk Bill of Rights, Bill of Human Rights, we must also emphasize the Bill of Women Rights, because women rights are human rights. So I will leave it at that, my brother. I hope I have captured this answer in a manner that deals with the question that you had posed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a wonderful way to put it, that we're not doing women a favor. Even as men, as we take up our position of responsibility to fight against harmful practices on women and girls, we are not doing them a favor. We are taking the responsibility because that is what they deserve. And you've pointed out something very important, that women must be given a role to play and they must have responsibility in their own matters. So it's not men coming to take responsibilities of women here. It is us supporting that women must also take leadership and positions of influence within the community because they are capable and they are able as well. So as we move towards the conclusion of the podcast, we want to make a call to action. And this call to action is to all men that are listening to us and all women who can reach this message to the men around them, that it is time now for men to step up and make a difference by giving women a chance and protecting them against harmful practices. And I'd like to give a chance to our guests today to make their concluding remarks with regards to that call of action. As you make your parting shot, why is it the time for men to step up and make a difference? Let's get to hear from David.
Okay, thank you so much. I think action point for men is to know that we are not really complete without women, and neither they complete without us. And therefore, because we are the head, once we bring them and give them the full support, what they need, not to press them, not to judge them, not to control them, they are very, very influential to take even our vision to other state and even to go more. So we need as men to see women as part and parcel of our livelihood and try to break out any practices that are harmful to them and join them to a workmanship as partners that will make the world better than it is today. So they are able and they are quite supportive and they are influential as well. And all this is for the humanity to be strong. And therefore, for my Maasai community, I'll echo and say, let us leave all those bad practices, injustices that we're doing for women. Let us join hands together. Let them be educated. Let them be supported even in businesses. Let us have a peaceful, if there's anything, let's have a peaceful, harmonious opportunity together, and you will give us a wonderful life and world to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, David. Michael?
Okay, thank you so much. What I can say is that the fight against EBV, FGM, and also other harmful practices, it requires male participation because every man has a role to play, either challenging the traditions, mentoring other young men, and also advocating for policy change, in that many men are in powerful positions. Many men are hold those positions that are key in the community. And also supporting the survivors, because we need to support the survivors, especially survivors for FGM and also for gender-based violence. Many women are being their rights are being violated. We need to support them, and I can say that silence or maybe not taking action, or maybe it leads to oppression. So we need to speak up and take responsibility to create a ripple effect of positive social change. I can say the time is now for men to stand up as allies, and also change agents in their families, communities, and beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael. Prince Zolani?
Once again, Wycliffe, I must say that conversations like this must happen more often than not, and we must ensure that we spread the word across the length and the breadth of our society. I agree fully with the colleagues that bringing men to actively participating, not necessarily leading the charge, but showing servant leadership in this respect by ensuring that our society is transformed from these stereotypes that women are subjected to, where some clearly and boldly, publicly and otherwise, reduce women to subjects and objects. So it's important that we as Africans in particular, we lead the charge. I often say that it is as a result of the miseducation of colonization that has really brought this into the fore. We have never had this situation. If you look back into our history of both the pre-colonial order or even the early years of coloniality, look at leadership of the queens of the motherland that were in the forefront of that. So we don't have any history except being infected by this disease of femicide through coloniality and colonial education system. It's important, therefore, that as we decolonize and as we restructure and reform our education system and syllabus in the African continent, that we foreground issues of equality as well as the issues of critical role that is played by women, particularly at a family level, family being a basic unit of our society. If you ask a question, anyone, that who is the pillar of any given African family, we will tell you without any fear of contradiction the centrality of women, our mothers, in the management of the family affairs. They are all rounders, and they have always been like that throughout history. It is important, therefore, that as we do this exercise, we must not just make it a ceremonial thing and a eventfulness, but it must be something that must demonstrate daily occurrence. The more we have these, the better to change the mindsets and to change the perceptions and to conscientize even the boy child never to look down upon their counterparts, the girl child in this context. So I really appreciate this, and I hope that it will help to make a positive installment in the conversation in the public domain, so that we take responsibility as men and we spread this word so that it extends across humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prince Zolani. And what a wonderful way to conclude episode 1, that men must step up. This is the time for you to express your boldness, your courage, and use your power for the positive of communities and society and making it better than it was. Issues of positive masculinity have been talked about, encouraged to talk about issues that other men are afraid of, so that we cannot remain passive in this fight against harmful practices against women. So look out for our next coming episodes. We'll be having a series of episodes coming out every month. So we want you to watch out for the next one, where we'll be discussing each and every harmful practices into the details, with real life stories of experiences from different communities in Africa. And like Zolani has said, that women have been at the core of our African communities and holding things together. We'll be having conversations with women as well in this podcast. We'll be having princesses and queens and ladies who have undergone the fight, and they have emerged victorious in fighting against these kind of harmful practices. So thank you everyone for joining us and listening to our conversation today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your stories, your experiences, and your wisdom to the community. And we wish you well as you go on with your other forms of work. Thank you and bye-bye.